Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your paycheck, seen how much was deducted before the money even reached your account, and wondered, how is it possible that people with far more money seem to pay less tax than everyone else? It's a question millions of people ask, and the answer isn't usually what most people think. Many assume it's because the wealthy are cheating the system or finding illegal loopholes. But in reality, a huge part of the answer is much simpler than that. They understand the rules. Not secret rules, not hidden rules, just financial rules that most people were never taught. That's exactly what today's lesson is about. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why taxes work differently for different people, why corporations play such a powerful role in wealth building, and why financial education may be one of the most valuable skills you can ever develop. This is Lesson 4. Before we talk about corporations, we need to understand a little history. Most people think income tax has always existed exactly the way it does today. But that's not really true. Modern income taxes are relatively recent when you look at the bigger picture of history. When income taxes were first introduced in many countries during the early 20th century, they were often presented as something that would primarily affect the wealthiest citizens. The idea sounded reasonable. Those with greater resources would contribute more, while ordinary workers would largely be protected. But over time, tax systems evolved. Rates changed, thresholds changed, rules became more complex, and eventually, large portions of the middle class became heavily affected by income taxes as well. Today, salaried employees often find themselves in a position where taxes are deducted automatically before they even have control over their earnings. Meanwhile, people with businesses, investments, and professional advisors learned how to operate within a completely different set of financial dynamics. One of the biggest tools they use is the corporation. Now let's compare two different financial realities. First, imagine the life of a typical employee. You go to work, you earn income. Before you receive much of that money, taxes are deducted. Then you use what's left to pay rent, food, transportation, bills, and everything else that makes up daily life. If there's anything remaining afterward, you might save it. You might invest it. But those choices happen after taxes have already taken their share. The order is simple: earn money, pay taxes, spend what's left. Now let's look at how a business generally operates. A company earns revenue. Then it pays for legitimate business expenses that are necessary to operate. Office space, equipment, employee salaries, software, professional services, marketing, travel related to business activities. After those expenses are accounted for, taxes are typically calculated on the remaining profit. So the sequence looks different. Earn money, pay legitimate business expenses, then pay taxes on what's left. That's a very different process, and over long periods of time, that difference can have a major impact on financial outcomes. This was one of the observations that Robert Kiyosaki highlights throughout Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His point wasn't that wealthy people are smarter than everyone else. His point was that many wealthy people structure their financial lives differently. They learn how businesses work, they understand legal financial structures, and they make decisions based on those rules. Now, this is an important moment in the lesson because it's very easy for people to misunderstand this topic. So let's be completely clear. There is a huge difference between tax evasion and tax planning. Tax evasion means illegally avoiding taxes. That's against the law, no question about it. But tax planning means using legal provisions that already exist within the tax system. Governments create these provisions intentionally. Why? Because they often want to encourage business creation, investment, innovation, housing development, and economic growth. As a result, tax codes in many countries contain rules, deductions, incentives, and structures that support those activities. The challenge is that most people never spend time learning about them. Not because they're hidden, but because financial education isn't always a major focus in traditional schooling. So many people spend years working hard without ever learning how the system itself operates. Rich Dad often explained this concept using a very simple perspective. Imagine three participants in the economy: an employee, a business owner, and the government. The employee earns income and pays taxes before having full control over that income. The government receives its portion first. The business owner earns income through a company, pays legitimate operating expenses, and then pays taxes on the remaining profit. The government still gets paid. But the process is different, the structure is different, and the outcome can be different as well. The lesson isn't that one person is good and another is bad. The lesson is that financial knowledge creates options. People who understand the rules have more choices available to them. People who don't understand the rules often have fewer choices. That's why financial education matters so much. So what should someone actually do with this information? The first step is surprisingly simple. Start asking better questions. Instead of assuming you already know how money works, become curious. Learn how businesses operate. Learn how taxes are structured in your country. Learn the difference between assets and liabilities. Learn how investments are treated. Learn how entrepreneurs think. If possible, talk to qualified professionals. Speak with an accountant. Ask questions. Understand what options legally exist for people in situations similar to yours. You may discover opportunities you never knew existed. Or you may simply gain a clearer understanding of how the system works. Either outcome is valuable. Because every improvement in financial knowledge gives you a better foundation for future decisions. The biggest lesson here isn't really about taxes, it's about awareness. Most people spend years playing a game without fully understanding the rules. The wealthy often spend time learning those rules before they start playing seriously. That's the difference. Knowledge creates perspective. Perspective creates better decisions. And better decisions, repeated over time, can completely change financial outcomes. The rules aren't hidden, but they do need to be learned. And the sooner you begin learning them, the more opportunities you'll be able to recognize. In the next lesson, we'll explore one of the most talked about ideas in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Why some people seem to spot opportunities everywhere they look, while others miss them entirely. And why the rich don't simply find money. They learn how to create it. That's Lesson 5. I'll see you there.